These are 13 abandoned stops and ghost towns scattered across Arizona's 385 miles of Route 66, places that were built by railroads, kept alive by the Mother Road, and left to die when Interstate 40 came through and took every car with it. Bobby Troupe's 1946 song made sure nobody forgot it. Arizona gets name-checked 3 times in the lyrics. Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, and San Bernardino. Interstate 40 construction across Arizona took nearly 25 years, and town by town, the traffic disappeared. Some communities adapted, most didn't, and a handful became the most haunting ghost towns anywhere in the American West. We're going to drive the full length of Arizona's Route 66, from the New Mexico border to the Colorado River, stopping at every abandoned landmark, burned-out trading post, and forgotten settlement along the way. Subscribe to the channel now and leave a comment below saying which U.S. state you're watching from. Then we'll start from where Arizona begins. 1. Lupton, the border ghost. Lupton sits at 6,188 feet elevation, just 1 mile from the New Mexico state line, and it carries the name of G.W. Lupton, a trainmaster who worked out of Winslow. Arizona's first railroad station opened here in 1905 when the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad arrived, and a post office followed in May 1917. For decades, this was the very first thing you saw crossing into Arizona on Route 66, and trading posts competed for your attention the moment you hit state lines. Max and Amelia Ortega opened the Indian Trail Trading Post in 1946, running it for nearly 20 years before it was raised to build I-40. Niall Rocky Rockwell started construction on Rocky's old stage station in 1954, putting together a cafe, cabins, and 3 service bays. When I-40 opened here in 1965, his land got split into 2 parcels without even a freeway exit, and business plunged to nearly nothing. Gilbert Ortega's dome-shaped Indian Village trading post stood for decades before burning down in 2022. Today, roughly 25 to 27 people live in Lupton. One historian put it bluntly, the shopfronts have not been well preserved, and there is not much charm left to draw people in. A film connection hides here too. The 1940 movie adaptation of The Grapes of Wrath shot a key scene at Lupton's Arizona Border Control Post, which means this tiny settlement with barely 24 residents was once part of one of the most important American films ever made. 2. Two Guns, Arizona's darkest ghost town, 30 miles east of Flagstaff, perched at 5,429 feet on the east rim of Canyon Diablo, sits what might be the most disturbing ghost town on all of Route 66. The history of Two Guns involves murder, exploitation, and massacre, and none of that is exaggeration. What happened in 1878 set the tone. Navajo warriors discovered Apache using Canyon Diablo for undetected travel, so they gathered sagebrush, lit fires at the cave entrance, and killed the Apache as they fled for air. 42 Apaches died from suffocation and Navajo weapons, and that cave became known as the Apache Death Cave. Daniel B. Oldfield built a trading post by the road in 1914, and in the early 1920s, Earl and Louise Cundiff purchased roughly 320 acres. That changed when Henry E. Miller showed up in 1925 and leased land from the Cundiffs. Miller falsely claimed to be full-blooded Apache, calling himself Chief Crazy Thunder, and built a zoo along the canyon rim with mountain lions, Gila monsters, coral snakes, and a lynx, all caged in brick, mortar, and chicken wire. He cleaned out the Apache Death Cave, installed electric lights, added fake cliff dweller ruins, and sold Apache skulls as souvenirs. His marketing strategy, according to N.A.U. Klein library archivist Sean Evans, was to shake chains to make coyotes howl, which lured gas customers over to the zoo. A lease disagreement in 1926 between Cundiff and Miller ended with Miller shooting and killing the unarmed Earl Cundiff, and a jury acquitted him at trial. Mountain lions attacked Miller on 2 separate occasions after that. A fire gutted his store in 1929, and he left Arizona in 1930, taking turquoise jewelry, silver, and expensive merchandise with him. A 1934 Texaco station and relocated zoo operated until the early 1950s before a 1971 fire destroyed the service station, and I-40 claimed whatever traffic remained. Today, Two Guns is completely abandoned. Ruins of the trading post, zoo cages along the canyon rim, a burned-out service station, and a collapsed KOA campground destroyed by arson around 2020. The 1915 Canyon Diablo Bridge still stands and earned a spot on the National Register of Historic Places in 1988, but Evans has warned that it doesn't seem like this will be here much longer. No active preservation efforts exist. 3. Canyon Diablo. More dangerous than Tombstone, 3 miles north of Two Guns, you'll find what was once one of the most lawless places in the American West. Canyon Diablo was settled in 1880 during construction of the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad Bridge, and at peak roughly 2,000 people lived there, mostly railroad workers, fugitives, gamblers, and prostitutes. 14 saloons, 10 gambling houses, 4 brothels, and 0 law enforcement. Locals called Main Street Hell Street. Rival brothel madams known as Clabberfoot Annie and Bullshit Mary settled their disputes with public wrestling matches. 6 town marshals died in the line of duty, and the longest-lasting one survived only a single month on the job. 1889 brought the train robbery. 4 Aztec Land and Cattle Company cowboys hit eastbound train number 2, escaping with over $100,000 in currency, $2,500 silver dollars, and $40,000 in gold coins, which works out to more than $3 million in today's money. Sheriff William Owen. Bucky O'Neill tracked the outlaws all the way to Wasweep Canyon near the Utah border. Only about $1,300 was ever recovered, and the rest, possibly $150,000 worth of loot, is believed to be cached somewhere along the escape route. Nobody has found it. Almost nothing survives of Canyon Diablo today. A few stone foundations, one standing wall from the Volz trading post, and a single tombstone belonging to Herman Wolf, a Prussian immigrant who lived from 1830 to 1899. An entire town of 2,000 people reduced to one grave marker. 4. Twin Arrows. The arrows that keep falling. Twin Arrows was never a town, just a trading post and gas station between Flagstaff and Winslow. Originally called Canyon Padre Trading Post, it was likely built in the late 1940s since it doesn't appear in Jack Rittenhouse's 1946 Route 66 guidebook. What gave it an identity was the Troxel family, who after 1955 placed 2 25-foot-tall wooden arrows made from telephone poles beside the road. A Valentine diner and souvenir shop rounded out the site, and the whole operation closed permanently sometime between 1995 and 1998. A Hopi-organized event restored the arrows in 2009, but one of them fell or was vandalized between February 15th and 22nd of 2022, leaving only one still standing. What remains today is a crumbling trading post and cafe with a collapsed ceiling on land owned by Arizona with buildings belonging to the Hopi tribe. And here's the contrast that makes Twin Arrows worth stopping for. Directly across the interstate sits the Twin Arrows Navajo Casino Resort, which opened May 24, 2013. $230 million built that facility, which houses over 1,100 slot machines, 200 hotel rooms, and approximately 500 employees. And it earned Chippewa 4 diamond status. One side of the highway holds a crumbling trading post with a single broken arrow. A $250 million casino sits on the other side. That's Route 66 condensed into a single frame. 5. Meteor City. Population 1. Meteor City was never a city at all, just a trading post named for the nearby Barringer meteor crater, a 50,000-year-old impact site measuring 4,000 feet wide and 570 feet deep. Joe Sharber opened the first version in 1938 as the Sharber Service Station, and a sign out front read, Population 1. When Sharber got married, somebody changed it to 2. Lonesome Jack Newsom bought the place in 1941, and his wife Goldie served as Justice of the Peace, issuing speeding citations to passing tourists, which earned her the nickname the Wicked Witch of Route 66. The landmark everyone remembers is the 60-foot geodesic dome, built in the late 1960s and linked to Gilbert Ortega Sr., a 4th-generation Arizona Indian jewelry retailer. Robert Bob Waldmeyer, the legendary Route 66 artist whose parents invented the corn dog, painted the world's longest map of Route 66 across the dome's exterior. Waldmeyer later became the inspiration for Fillmore and Pixar's Cars. 2012 brought abandonment, and no buyers stepped forward, which landed the dome on a demolition list. Joanne and Michael Brown, who had traveled Route 66 as children in California, purchased and saved it around 2016 to 2017. Ownership later passed to the Dole family, who reopened the site in May 2025 as Meteor City Attractions with dinosaur rides, a gift shop inside the restored dome, vintage arcade games, and a Volkswagen Paint-A-Bug graffiti installation. A 60-foot dome in the desert that nearly got demolished is now a dinosaur-themed roadside attraction. Route 66 has always been weird, and that's the whole point. 6. Winona, the town that only exists because of a rhyme. Don't forget Winona ranks among the most famous lines Bobby Troup ever wrote, and the tiny settlement sits at 6,240 feet, about 13 miles east of Flagstaff. Most people don't realize that Winona is out of geographic sequence in the lyrics, lying east of Flagstaff rather than west. Troup needed a rhyme for Arizona, and Winona filled the gap. Back in the early 1900s, a Texan named Billy Adams built a trading post here and established one of the first tourist camps in Arizona around 1920, offering 12 one-room cabins at $1 a night. The Walnut Creek Bridge from 1924, a historic steel Parker through truss bridge stretching over 100 feet, is the most notable surviving structure. 1947 killed Winona. Route 66 was realigned with an 11.5-mile improvement that bypassed the settlement entirely, and today essentially no commercial establishments remain. The town's most lasting contribution to American culture might be this. Singer Winona Judd adopted her stage name after hearing Winona in the Route 66 song. A town with no businesses, no real population, and no particular reason to exist became immortal because a songwriter needed 2 more syllables. That's what a good rhyme can do. 7. Ash Fork. The town that kept burning, Ash Fork was founded in October 1882 alongside the railroad, named by Superintendent F.W. Smith for ash trees, where 3 forks of Ash Creek come together. And then it started catching fire. 1885 brought the first blaze. 1893 brought one that burned the entire town, which got rebuilt on the opposite side of the tracks. November 20th, 1977 brought what locals call the Big Fire, destroying most downtown businesses. And October 7th, 1987 finished the job, wiping out nearly all remaining buildings along the 2-block business district. Fire wasn't the only problem. When the Santa Fe Railroad moved its main line north via the 44-mile Crookton Cutoff in 1960, most railroad families left, and the town lost nearly half its population. The railroad had been providing water until 1977, the same year the Big Fire hit. I-40 bypassed the town around 1979. The Escalante Hotel tells one of the sadder stories here. A Fred Harvey house built in 1907 in Mission Spanish architecture at a cost of approximately $115,000. It was demolished in 1968. Route 66 construction, as a divided highway, had already destroyed many storefronts and sidewalks, forever altering the aesthetic qualities of the downtown area. Hollywood showed up too, and not in a flattering way. Parts of Ash Fork served as sets for the 1992 Jean-Claude Van Damme film Universal Soldier, where buildings were chosen for their extremely low purchase price and poor condition, and then blown up on camera. One thing keeps Ash Fork on the map. The town sits on some of North America's finest flagstone deposits. Coconino sandstone, roughly 260 million years old, with over 50 quarries in the area. The Arizona House of Representatives officially named it the Flagstone Capital of the World in 2001. Population has dropped from 517 in the 1910 census to approximately 396 by 2010. But as Historical Society volunteer Richard Morales put it, people expect a ghost town when they exit the interstate, but they find a community still very much alive, just in a different form. 8. Valentine, postcards and forced assimilation, 39 people. That's what the 2020 census recorded in Valentine, an unincorporated community renamed in 1910 after Robert G. Valentine, the Commissioner of Indian Affairs who served from 1909 to 1912. The darkest chapter here centers on the Truxtun Canyon Training School, built in 1901 and opened in 1903 as a Bureau of Indian Affairs facility designed to forcibly assimilate Native American children. Those children were removed from their families, spoken to exclusively in English, and trained in Euro-American industrial work skills. Enrollment reached about 200 students drawn from Hualapai, Apache, Havasupai, Hopi, Pima, Tohono O'odham, Navajo, and Yavapai tribes. Bricks manufactured on-site by Hualapai students expanded the school in 1924. Operations ceased in 1937, and most buildings were demolished. The surviving 2-story brick schoolhouse, built in colonial revival style, was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2003 and is now owned by the Hualapai Indian Tribal Nation. On a lighter note, the Valentine Post Office became famous for remailing Valentine's Day cards stamped with a unique, heart-shaped cancel. That novelty is probably the reason most people have heard the name at all. A boarding school designed to erase cultures, a novelty post office stamp, and 39 people. That's Valentine. 9. Hackberry. From silver bust To Route 66 Shrine, silver put Hackberry on the map in 1874 when Sam Crozer found the Hackberry mine. When those silver deposits dried up in 1919, the town hit ghost status. Route 66 came through in 1926 and revived it, and the Northside Grocery, now known as the Hackberry General Store, opened around 1934 to 1935, selling Conoco gasoline. September 22, 1978, brought the I-40 bypass, and the store shut down again. And that's when Bob Waldmeyer entered the picture. The same Route 66 artist who painted the map on Meteor City's dome, who traveled in an orange 1972 Volkswagen microbus, and who later inspired Fillmore and Cars, acquired the store in 1992 and reopened it as a visitor's center. John and Carrie Pritchard arrived in 1998 carrying their memorabilia collection and turned the place into a full-blown attraction. The Pritchards retired in 2016, and Amy Franklin runs it now. The National Trust for Historic Preservation named Route 66, including Hackberry, among its 11 most endangered historic places in 2018. Fewer than 200 people live here, but the general store with its vintage cars, license plate-lined ceiling, and 1950s diner recreation pulls steady international tourism. Hackberry has now been a tourist attraction longer than it ever operated as a silver mining town. The roads saved it more than the mines ever did. 10. Goldroad. The town, they burned to dodge taxes. This might be the most outrageous story along the entire route. A prospector named Jose Jerez, grubstaked just $16 by Kingman store owner Henry Lovin, discovered rich gold ore in 1899 when he broke off a rock to throw at his stubborn burro. Assay results came back at an astounding 40 to 48 ounces per ton. Within 2 years, Jerez and Levine sold their claims for $50,000 to California investors who formed a $1.5 million mining corporation. $2,250,000 worth of gold came out of that mine between 1905 and 1907 alone, and by final closure in 1931, total production had reached $7.3 million. A post office operated from 1902 to 1925, and again from 1937 to 1942. And then came the war. Mining was suspended during World War II, and here's where it gets absurd. In 1949, after the fighting was over, the entire town was deliberately razed to avoid property taxes. Every building torn down on purpose. Adwest Minerals acquired the mine in 1992 and produced gold again until 1998 when prices dropped, and operations resumed in 2007 when gold prices soared. Today, only crumbling mill foundations, cement stairs, rock-retaining walls, and the Goldroad Cemetery with its weathered picket-fenced graves survive. A whole town erased from the landscape because someone refused to pay taxes on empty buildings. 11. Cool Springs, Hollywood. Blew it up. Then a Chicagoan rebuilt it. Cool Springs started in the mid-1920s as a gas station and lunchroom on the steep Sitgreaves Pass, climbed between Kingman and Oatman. James Walker moved his family from Huntington, Indiana, and built 8 tourist cabins alongside a cafe that became known for its chicken dinners. Route 66 was realigned through Yucca on September 17, 1952, and that killed the traffic. Abandonment came by 1964, and the station burned to the ground in 1966. What happened next sounds made up. In 1991, a film crew temporarily rebuilt the structure as a movie set for the Jean-Claude Van Damme film Universal Soldier, and then blew it up at the end of filming. That's the second time Universal Soldier shows up in this story, by the way, after they already blew up buildings in Ashfork. None of that mattered because of what happened in 1997. A Chicago real estate broker named Ned Leuchner stumbled upon the ruins during a Route 66 trip and purchased the property in 2001 from the niece of former operator Floyd Spidell. Working alongside builder Dennis Duchesne and using old photographs as guides, he painstakingly reconstructed the station from scratch. Getting electricity to the remote site alone required a 4-year fight with the government. Cool Springs was fully restored and reopened on May 2, 2004, during the Arizona Route 66 Fun Run, and it now operates as a gift shop and museum. Built in the 1920s, abandoned in the 1960s, burned down in 1966, temporarily rebuilt for a movie and blown up in 1991, then permanently reconstructed by a guy from Chicago who just happened to drive by. Route 66 runs on exactly this kind of stubbornness. 12. Oatman, the ghost town that came back Oatman carries the name of Olive Oatman, an Illinois girl captured during her pioneer family's massacre in 1851, sold to the Mojave people who tattooed her face, and released in 1856. A tent camp appeared here in 1906. $10 million in gold, roughly $181 million in 2025 dollars, was the major strike of 1915. And the town swelled to at least 3,500 residents. At peak, Oatman held 2 banks, 7 hotels, 20 saloons, and 10 stores. The United Eastern Mine permanently shut down in 1924 after producing $13.6 million in gold at the government-controlled price of $20 an ounce. And the overall district pulled approximately $40 million from the ground, roughly $751 million in today's dollars, by 1941. That's when all remaining mining was ordered shut as part of the World War II war effort. The Oatman Hotel, built in 1902 and the oldest 2-story adobe building in Mojave County, trades on the legend that Clark Gable and Carol Lombard spent their honeymoon there after their 1939 Kingman wedding, though the actual details of that story are disputed. When Route 66 was realigned through Yucca on September 17, 1952, a local resident recalled that Oatman literally just died and became nothing but a wide spot in the road for the next 30 years. What came next was stranger than the gold rush. Approximately 2,000 wild burros, descendants of mining pack animals, now roam the area, wandering through streets and turning over garbage cans. Arizona's oldest gunfighter group, the Oatman Ghost Rider Gunfighters, perform staged shootouts daily at 1:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon. Annual events include the Sidewalk Egg Frying Contest in July and the Great Oatman Bed Race in January. Only 102 residents showed up in the 2020 census, but the town draws approximately 500,000 visitors per year, from Gold Rush Boomtown to Ghost Town to a place where wild donkeys walk into gift shops. That's a full life for anywhere. 13. Topock, the final crossing. The last Arizona stop on Route 66 is Topock, a Mojave word meaning water crossing, where the highway crosses the Colorado River into California. A wooden railroad bridge across the river started this settlement in 1883, and the original name was Mellon, after steamboat captain Jack Mellon. 2 bridges define Topock's legacy. The Old Trails Bridge, built from 1915 to 1916, stretched 800 feet as a brace-ribbed arch and held the title of longest arched bridge in America at the time of construction. Route 66 traffic crossed it until 1947. Both the 1940 film The Grapes of Wrath and the opening credits of Easy Rider featured this bridge, which earned a spot on the National Register of Historic Places on September 30, 1988, and now carries a natural gas pipeline. The Red Rock Bridge from 1890, a steel cantilevered truss sitting on red sandstone piers, was converted from railroad to automobile use in 1947 at a cost of approximately $60,000. Route 66 traffic rolled across it until I-40's new bridge went up in 1966 and dismantling came in 1976. During the 1930s, Dust Bowl refugees, the Okies of Steinbeck's novel, crossed these bridges heading west, chasing a new life in California. 2 people. That's what the 2020 census recorded in Topock. The final stop on Arizona's Route 66 has a population you can count on one hand.